Okay. All right, without further ado, let's get right into it. So, Pontus Isabella, how are you doing?
Good.
Good? All right, fantastic. Well, I'm just going to go right into it. Um, but maybe just perhaps, just give yourselves just a short introduction. Who are you, and who are you to talk about competitions?
Who am I? Hi, everyone. Have a good meal for those of you who's enjoying sitting with a beer and pizza or pasta or whatever you like the most. I'm Isabella Gregorio. I'm Italian, but I live in Sweden now since 17 years, 17 long years. So I'm half and half, you can say. Um, why we are the one talking, I'm not sure about it. They just thought that. Yeah. How long have you been competing for? Okay. So I started dancing Lindy Hop in 2002. And I went into competition directly. Actually, I started with Vincenzo Fesi, also an Italian Lindy Hopper. And I've met him. He was already a boogie-woogie dancer, since in Europe we have boogie-woogie. Lindy Hop was not that popular back then. So I met him in April 2002. December 2002, I was teaching in Finland with him. I couldn't speak any word of English, and I could barely follow the difference between a 6 count and an 8 count. But I was there with all my new tailor-made clothes. At least they thought I was beautiful. So since maybe the dance was so-and-so. And I've been competing since then. First with Vincenzo and then with Pontus now since 2009.
My name is Pontus. I'm Swedish. Have been, always. I have been dancing since I was 5. Lindy Hop since I was 8. And I've been competing since I was 6. I'll talk more about that system later on, I think, but basically within sport dancing, but still swing dance within that system. So I don't know, there's been plenty of competitions basically every weekend for like all of those years during my school years, and then as we grew up, started competing in the Lindy scene as we know it today. With multiple partners, but for how many years now?
2009.
Since 2009 with Isabella,
17,
yeah.
17.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm just 22.
Okay. So, in your opinion, what role do competitions play in a dance scene, and in particular if we're talking about swing dance, Lindy Hop?
I think it has a few roles that I think it should have, and then I think that it has a few roles that it shouldn't have. So what happens with like in this scene when you want to be a professional, you kind of have to when you want to be a professional dancer in general, you kind of have to become a teacher. That's among the things where you can get any money about dancing at all. That is probably the most available spot if you don't want to be like a full-time show dancer, which is also a really hard thing to do, especially if you're doing a niche dance, like for example the Lindy Hop. So what happens with the competitions is that they do play a role where that's a really good way to show yourself and show your skills, and then maybe you'll get a few gigs from doing those competitions. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good teacher either, right? But you need those gigs to be able to survive as a dancer. So it can have a little bit of a paradoxical result because of that. Competition is competition, so it is only a show of physical skill, more or less. But then you get gigs for that competition where you have to be all of the sudden pedagogical and you have to like be able to run a class properly and so on. So there's probably some mismatching there, but other than that, it definitely is a showcase of your physical current skill.
To add the things, yeah, you need to know the culture about it, and maybe new dancers who are very energetic and very good, they win competition, but maybe they are not their experience to that. At some point, everybody needs to start somewhere somehow. So you need to start somewhere, maybe when you're not that experienced. But I think that nowadays, only my opinion, we stopped taking classes too early because we've been thrown into teaching also too early because of the skill we've seen and the result you got in competition. So it can be good and bad. Sometimes you win a competition and you're also a good teacher and you're also very good and you know the culture and you're good to go. But it's not always the case, right?
So there's probably some other aspects to it as well. And I'd like to ask you, Pontus, you said you got into dance when you were 6 years old. 5. Like how, do you think that because there was competitions, that was also maybe a reason why you stuck into it for so long? Could you maybe tell that feeling?
Yeah, so the things that we talked about now with like the paradoxical result and getting gigs and so on, obviously is about like very high level competitions. But when you talk more about like, you know, rookie level competitions or medium level competitions or whatever have you, or competitions for kids, which is what I went through, it is more of a motivator because it's a hype situation. You basically get this like really high adrenaline version of the thing that you're doing. So it might not be the perfect representation of the thing that you're doing, but it is definitely going to be a hype version of it. And as a kid, I remember that was the main motivator. I don't know if I would have actually continued dancing if I wouldn't have had a competition going on Saturday. And then I know that after that one, there's another one coming in 2 weeks, so I need to be ready for that one. It kind of went on like that. And the system that I grew up in kind of works very much like a football club for kids, where you had practices every week, but the practices was for the purpose of preparing yourself for this competition, for match day, basically. Yeah, so that's just kind of what kept us going. It did become a little bit of a backwards way to learn the dance because we learned like how to smile for an audience and how to raise your eyes and so on before we knew how to lead and follow. I didn't learn much about social dancing until I was so old. I was 10. No, but you know, so I started dancing when I was 5, but like leading and following wasn't a thing until I went to Harang for the first time, which luckily was in my country, so I could go as a kid quite easily. And that was the first time I ever social danced, but I didn't, like the thing about connection and the physicality of that wasn't something that I was aware of. So that became a whole new journey then when that was it. But you know, that would be very hard to hook a 5-year-old on the theory of leading and following. That doesn't really work. It works a little bit better if like, yeah, if you do this with your hands and you kick and da-da-da, and you look happy, then you might get a trophy. All right, cool, I'm gonna do all of that and then I get a trophy. And then I see everybody else competing because obviously at the competition there was really good dancers there. And those were always, in my opinion, back then, the dancers in the Lindy Hop and the Boogie, which I also did a lot, they were always the coolest ones compared to like the other dance styles that were at the same competitions. Yeah.
Yeah, so the reason I brought that question up was because I was talking with a multi-mambo world champion, and I saw he had all these kids and incredibly talented people who were so young. And I said, how do you get them to stay motivated? He said, competitions. Because also the maybe that was the case for your parents, but the parents get kind of crazy when they see that their kid is kind of hooked on to this competition, moving to the next thing. So I guess when it's one of the things that we bring up in Lindy Hop scene is like, where's all the young peeps? And so maybe that may be another role that competitions could have. And I know for my case in breaking, that was also very much the case. You challenge yourself. So Yeah, and probably there are some other roles as well, but as you do say, there are some aspects where it could go the wrong way. And that's, you mentioned a few things, Pontus. So, question for you, Isabella. Should there be a clear judging system for Lindy Hop? Or what's a good way forward, in your opinion? It could be for both of you, but
Yeah.
you start.
Yes, I think it should, because too often, when we judge competition, even high-level competition, big competition there is nowadays around, we as a judges, I say we when I'm judging, but the judges have a very small information about this competition is about this, and you should look for the authenticity. But I don't think it's enough to just have a all-around idea of what you need to see. Because what happened then, and I know it by experience, because I'm 25, that your own how do you say? I lost the word. It comes into the picture, your own judgment or your own the subjectivity, exactly. So what you like, and I don't think that's fair, because I don't judge all the people that I like, or I don't judge the style that I prefer. I don't judge the things that I will prefer seeing in the scene only, because it needs to be fair enough for everyone. So if another one who has a different style that I like or I prefer is better than the one who's competing against has a style that I prefer, I still need to be objective and give the point, the winning to the one who's not theoretically my style or my favorite or my idea of dancing only. That plays a role when you have 50-50, when you're matching. And when you don't know how to, it's like you're very close. And then you can have a subjective also idea or judgmental. But I don't think if we don't have a clear system, if we don't have a clearer system, it's unfortunately the personal things that you like is going to play a biggest role. And I don't think it's fair for judging and for the people who's competing and preparing themselves. They don't want to say, oh, Isabella is there, I know she doesn't like my style, so I won't win. But there is people who does think that, not about me, because I hope and I try my best to be as fair as possible. I think, at least.
Yeah, I think judging is something that we talk a lot about together, and you can get into very bizarre situations judging dance sometimes, not just for the sake of it like being an artistic form that you're now trying to rank somehow, and you very much have to kind of forget who the dancers are, and you just have to look at like who's actually like what are they pulling off right now, because it's not about the dancer you are, it's about what you're performing in this specific competition or this specific song. But with that said, sometimes we only get like maybe 3 seconds to watch somebody. Like whenever we get to judge, and you know this as well, when we judge prelims for any competition, those ones there's like, you know, there's a lot of couples on the floor or a lot of solo dancers on the floor, and we just really fast have to figure out, okay, who's like the top 33%, who's the bottom 33%, and then I need to spend a lot of time looking at the people in the middle, because that's where it's going to be a little bit harder to differentiate. But it means that I've only maybe spent like 3 to 6 seconds watching some people that I then immediately put in maybe the lower pocket or the higher pocket. So it could be really unfair, because maybe I watched them just when they were amazing, or maybe I watched them when they were doing really poorly, or maybe fell over or whatever. And so it can become quite unfair because of that. But usually the reason for that format is a time issue. We don't want to kill too much time off from the social dance night. And so there we have a paradox where like, oh, okay, because this is mainly a social dance, we can't properly do competitions that are fully fair. So then it also becomes, there's another way to talk about the paradox with the competitions in a social dance and so on. Whether there should be a system or not, I don't think there needs to be a system that every single competition needs to follow. But it's good to have transparency. So whenever you do organize a competition, there probably should be a very easy way to see what the idea of that competition is. Are there certain values that the organizer wants to have as an agenda, for example? Do you want to prioritize a certain aspect of the dance or not? Or do you just want to kind of make it a fun thing as a highlight of the evening, which is totally fine, where like you just kind of trust the judges, and that's also fine. But it would also be nice sometimes to have like more direction as a judge.
Because of course it depends also what competition we are talking about, which level we are talking about, what kind, is it group competition, is it jazz, it's mix and match. There is a lot of things to evaluate, of course, when it comes to rules. What I meant before, I don't mean that, probably everybody knows the World Rock and Roll Confederation is where it's the WRC, where there is a lot of competition going on. It's a federation where you have a clear system, which I don't agree with or about. You have points from 1 to 9, rhythm, points from 1 to 9, leading and following. I don't mean that way. We are doing a vernacular dance. We are doing a street dance. It's not ballet. Like we can't, individuality is a big part of it. And of course we need to evaluate and enrich that as well. But as Pontus was saying, and I was saying before, if we have a little bit of a clear information about what do we need to judge here, what is the importance of this competition, and not only, it has to be vernacular, it has to be original in the way that it's original from the 40s, or original in the way that you're coming out with an original move. So, yeah.
Oh, I actually have a question for Alex. I actually have a little question for Alex then, because it's a I don't know if this is true, what I heard, but we did judge a competition once in Lithuania, Vilnius, where where they had a really interesting system that I kind of liked the idea of. Every judge had a specific area, a specific value of the dance that they were focusing on, and they would only rank the couples by that value. So, meaning that if I had musicality, for example, I would only judge the musicality between the couples, and then I would rank them on that, but I would ignore everything else. I wouldn't judge them by their aerials or their material and so on as well. And so, like, they just had a lot of different values like that. We did a similar system because we were inspired by that during the pandemic for a online jazz competition, Kendi Aramista. No? Did I say it correctly? Yeah. And we used the same kind of system because it was just like really inspiring. And I think we had technique, musicality, repertoire, style, authenticity, I think. Artistry was the fifth, yeah. So those were like 5 different judges only judging by that standard, which means that the scoring, once you would read your scoring, you actually had like pretty good feedback of your dancing because you didn't need to talk to the judges anymore, but you actually had, I had a 5 in musicality, so I need to work on that, like that was a kind of a cool system. And what I heard was that came from like the hip-hop breaking scene. Do you have any information about that?
Yeah, I think it's the R16 competition, and they did. I don't know if that judging system still goes on, but there's still some reminiscence of it in breaking, where the interesting thing about that one is that they would choose the judges according to what they were judging. So, for example, they would take an old school person that would be judging foundation. They would take somebody who's really into the more gymnastic part of it for power or technique. So there would be one that would be foundation, the other would be technique. Yeah, and then people who were like very well known for their original style, like their cool and flavor and style, they would judge style. It is a very interesting thing. I'm not sure it's stuck, but they would still judge these kind of 5 pillars accordingly. I was talking to the mambo dancer who's judging at the big at the summit in New York, and he would say it was three essences. One is to do with ear, the feel that you get from the dancer, and then the second one was the visual, the sight, and then based on that, like in the ear you would have rhythm, like are you timing? Are you in time? And then the other one was more the interpretation of the music, which is very interesting. And then you would get scores that are very precise with ponderation, but the ponderation is always the question. How do they all weigh the same? And that's the really tricky one.
If you're done, because like the competition, we thought it was very interesting, and they were actually smart because they used the teachers that were there. Of course, they used us, or they put us, not used. They put us into what actually represents us the most, and they knew it without asking us who we will prefer. When we read it, I was like, it makes total sense that you do that. Makes total sense that I judge this. Makes total sense. So they were very smart about it. They even though they didn't call it gymnastics, but within us, they did a great job. And then I was saying, although sometimes it can be, I mean, I don't want to call it unfair, but the result by doing this system, by judging by this system, is not going to be the same as if we would have judged a competition without these different topics, let's say. Because we've talked, yeah, it does prove the human factor, because we talked about it after. If we would have just judged a competition like we usually do, who would have put you first? Not the one that I chose about style. But the style was, for me, that choice of that couple. But as an overall winner, I wouldn't have chose that couple and so on. So it can be, if you want to say unfair, but in another hand, it gives you, like you said before, straight feedback on, okay. Because the thing is, if you are a complete dancer, then you have rhythm, then you have musicality, then you have artistry, then you have style, right? In a way. So it kind of like, it doesn't give you opportunity to not win the competition if kind of you have the all elements at once. So I guess that was the thing, but it was very interesting actually.
Yeah, and for me, the question still arises on what is it that is so characteristic to the Lindy Hop? Let's just say the Lindy Hop, that would need to be what would we need to be represented? You know, so like where do you put in individuality? Is that a characteristic that we want to promote within this dance? Because if you just take ballroom, I guess like your own original character and personality and flavor doesn't matter so much. Right. So there's some things that aren't transposable in a way. Does anybody have a question about maybe this topic or anything that we touched on so far?
No questions.
No questions. Okay. Ah, yes.
Thinking about the thing that you said, that you have like 60 seconds to look at someone. 6 seconds, sorry. 60 seconds is a lot. Do you think that maybe there should be some kind of a limit how many people can go to the prelims? Because let's say if 300 people sign up, it's impossible to judge fairly whether you have a system or not.
Right.
How do you get out of the prelim limbo?
I mean, we can both answer. No, I mean the most fair solution to it is basically to split up the prelims into more heats, or you know, like if stamina wouldn't have been an issue for anybody, then it would have been to play more songs and have everybody, because it's really great having everybody in on the same space where I can compare everybody. Once we do heats, I have the issue of, do I remember even if I do notes of everybody, do I remember what that note actually means once I get to the third heat, etc. So that can also be a little bit difficult. There's flaws with basically every competitive system. You know, more songs, that would have worked, but that's not really gonna be nice for the dancers either. The dancers are pretty upset even if there's a dance-off nowadays, or an extra song, which used to be really common back in the days. I mean, like, like 15 or like maybe even 20 years ago. We weren't as efficient judges in the scene as most people are now, or most professionals are now. So these dance-offs or extra songs needed to happen very often. And so you would have exhausted dancers on the floor, and they would be really upset about that because they couldn't perform their best anymore, of course. So then they don't feel fairly judged anyway. So then you have to ask, like, okay, what's the point in that case with doing more songs if they can't do what they want to do? So maybe heats is the solutions to that, even though it has flaws as well. But then you have the time constraint as an organizer who has a lot of other things that they need to fit into the time schedule. Where do we do all of those? Do we have a room for it even? Or do we have the space? Do we want all of our social dancers to stand and watch for this long, etc.? So there's a perfectly valid reason to why it is how it is usually. But that would probably be the best solution, I think.
I was thinking, because you said about is it fair? And of course, I talk about from my experience. I can't talk from anybody else, but I also know about my colleagues and judges. That's why I said it needs to be a better system, because we all have our own system, which works for each and every one of us, and that's good that we have it because we know how to categorize. But I think that if you are probably, this comes with experience though. If you are experience it fast enough, maybe you need one more song, but you know your eyes knows quickly about which couple to take in at once. So you go and watch the couples that are a yes, then you watch the couples, at least that's what we do, that are a no. You kind of like, a no, you know what I mean, who's passing first at once, who's not, and then you carefully you spend a little bit more time in the one in the middle, if that's what I mean. That's what we do, and I know you do the same. And I think that if you know exactly, your mind knows how much 10 or 12 seconds is per couple. And I think that even if we miss a mistake, unless it's a major one, mistakes are part of it. We are social dancing. I think that we are not doing choreography. Mistake for me is a part of the things. It's like, it's only about how you fix it. Yeah, but it's not a big deal. So even if I miss a mistake of somebody that I said yes about, maybe the mistake wasn't big, but you can't go back all the time to revisit. Not all the time, at least.
Okay, let's move on a little bit from the judging, and I'd like to ask you, Isabella, what's your favorite format in Lindy Hop? And competition-wise, what's your favorite format, and why?
It depends what kind of competition we are talking about. Or, yes, but Lindy Hop is it?
What format? Mix and match, strictly?
That's what you meant. Okay. Personally, strictly.
Strictly.
Always. It's my thing. No choreography. I've never been like, I do it. I love it. I choreograph for others. I think I have even good ideas, but strictly is my thing.
So when you say strictly, and for those who just want to know, that means that you come with your partner, with your fixed partner. So you know who you're dancing with in advance, and you can even prepare for the competition. But within that, would you say, is it to fast music, slow music? Is it intentionally, are you going to make sure that you're going to trigger improvisation so they don't know what type of tempo or music they're going to dance to? Is it a half song, full song, spotlight format? Are you allowed air steps, no air steps?
I got you. Air step, absolutely. Now, I haven't done it in a few years, but I can. Yes, I can if I want to. I just decided not to. Absolutely. Spotlights, slightly longer, 16, 8 count, maybe. Because I don't like short ones.
Okay.
I don't like short ones because you're not really showing yourself. I like a mix of, not choreography in the meaning that I like to choreograph just a step, but I like to have a solid. When it comes to aerials, especially maybe tricky or difficult areas, safety comes always first, and you always have to have a certain idea on where you enter, how you enter in, if you're about to enter an aerials, and that's what I mean. Like just 1/8 count just before a difficult tricks comes or an aerials choreographed. The rest, maybe a little bit of rhythm things. So like we like to have a bigger spotlight, like a longer, spotlight, so that we can improvise and have a little bit of prepared material, if you like so, and fast, absolutely, with aerials.
Pontus, what do you like to see most? What type of format do you like to see, and why?
All right, so if I'm talking about what I want to see, because that's very different from what I want to do. Usually when I'm dancing myself, I just want to dance as short as possible. No, but yeah, I think just objectively, the most fair, strictly format or partnered format in general is a full song. Or, even if it's a half song, 1 minute 30 seconds, it's just like a long, uninterrupted time of dancing so that we know that there's going to be elements of everything. Even if it's a couple who has prepared a lot of material, they are not going to prepare like a choreography that is 1.5 minutes long, because that's not going to fit the music. By the way, just as a as a parenthesis, that's exactly what we did when I was a kid. Was we just had choreos, but we didn't know what song we were going to dance to. So everybody just did that, and it would almost never fit the music, right? But I think that's like the best format, because you're not going to, your competition isn't going to suffer from couples that are overly prepared, so overly prepared that you almost get no social dancing or basic dancing at all. But there is plenty of space for everybody to properly introduce themselves and present themselves in whatever artistic way they want. Yeah.
But not an entire song in fast tempo. I mean fast tempo. I feel like... I only theoretical, exactly. No, I hear you, and we know, like, we kind of have, we dance together, we don't need to have the same opinion, but we kind of do, often at least. So, yeah, to see, you would like to see, but not dance the entire song. I see what you're doing there. It's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, for me, it needs to be short and intense, And that's why, like, spotlights with a little bit of everything when it comes to fast dancing. When it comes to medium slow dancing, absolutely entire song. This is my opinion.
Yeah, but it also has to do with if it's what's high risk, high reward, or low risk, high reward, etc. for like the competitor. Again, we are talking about like high level competitions where we're assuming now that every competitor really cares and really is competitive, and that's not always the case, and it doesn't have to be the case. But if that is the case, then yeah, it's a strictly spotlight format is like low risk, high reward. I don't need to prepare a lot of material. But I might get a lot from whatever I'm doing. But when you have competitions like really, like the normalizer or like the Champions Cup, which are those are like the heaviest competitions right now, and they're very high risk, high reward, because you have to prepare a lot of material for all of those battles, and you might not make it till the end. So you might not even actually show even half of that material. So this depends a lot on if you actually have the grit to prep all of that with the risk of not even getting to show it.
All right, I want to ask something a bit more personal. Pontus, when you were dancing, let's say in your teens and doing all these competitions, who were your biggest rivals, and how did they make you feel?
It's funny you said the teens as well, because that's when you care the most about those kind of things. No, but yeah, we had, funnily enough, like when I was in my teens, that's when dancing started to really work for me. like in terms of like that's when I felt like I was actually getting good. And I felt like it was a part of my identity, etc. So that also means I started caring a lot more about how it actually went, and I took it harder if I didn't win, etc. And there was a little bit, because it wasn't an uncommon thing for kids to dance in Sweden back then. I started in '94, and like there was hundreds of kids in each single competition doing all of these dances. So I was just one in the mix. But once I got up into the teenage years, there was a couple of years where me and my partner, and there was only like maybe 2 or 3 other couples that were at a certain level. So there was like, now we've lost a bunch of kids basically along the way. And so we were kind of the only ones who kept on going for a good time in that age group. So it became almost a little bit more competitive because it was always the same people who would beat you, etc. You know, so yeah, we definitely had some that were like high rivals, and what was the follow-up question?
How did it make you feel?
Oh, how it made me feel. Made me feel lousy whenever I wouldn't win, and like you know, you're in your teenage years, so like you feel like you're like the main character of the world, and so like it's always like you feel like you're the one being treated unfairly. I should have won that competition. I was a lot better, etc. And whenever somebody came to me and said you should have won, it's like, yeah, people told me I should have won, but you know, obviously they told that to people who came second whenever I won as well. So like it's like, who is the main character really here? So yeah, you know, like back then, I would take it pretty hard. But that's also like what made me practice a lot with it. Thankfully, I did feel like I identified with dancing then, because I guess if you don't feel like you identify with it, you might just quit if it's not going well enough for you, whatever that is. But I did identify enough with it to like keep going. And like when I was in high school, I skipped school a lot because I went to the dance studio and practiced all day. And then once school was over, that's when my partner showed up, so we practiced some more, and then went home. But yeah, that's basically, that's when I kind of decided that that's what I wanted to do. Don't skip school, kids. But I did. Yeah.
You said that you took it hard when you didn't win in your teens only? No, I'm just asking. It's just no, I'm joking. No, it's true. No, but it is like that. I was now it's a little bit of a different question, but because you said you took it hard, I did it all the time. I am a very competitive person, and I don't think I should be ashamed of that or not saying it. Like, I compete because I love the adrenaline of competing, and I want to win. And if I come second, for me, is a loss. And a lot of people say, but second place, you're almost, yeah, I'm almost there, I'm not there. And, but it's not, but this is me and my opinion. I totally understand and respect, and I'm very happy when people said, I just compete because I just want to be there. Or I just like the adrenaline of being on the floor, and I don't mind about the result. And I understand, I'm just not one of those.
Yeah, I think that there are two winners in a competition: the one that the judges choose and the one that the public actually chooses. And I actually have a tendency to think that when you get first place, you're not going to get the hearts of the people as much. Yeah. Whereas when you lose and you lose, you know, you did well, then you win the hearts of people.
Yeah, because for people it's unfair.
Yeah, for people it's unfair. So, yeah.
It's like sorry. I was just making an example. It's like in all of the like talent shows or like singing shows, you know, it's always the second place that gets all the contracts because they're not bound to whatever contract is for. So like they usually make a bigger career and so on. It's kind of funny. Yeah, no, but I totally agree about the there being two winners. Yeah.
We always say, like, for example, that we do see sometimes people is like, but why did you put them first? Because, you know, we always say to people, the aerials or the tricks, it depends on not on the final. In the final you need to have all elements together, but if the dance and the fundamentals are not there, that you do many aerials, it doesn't matter, at least not to me. as a judge. So you can have done a lot of areas where the people, the audience are impressed, but as a judge's point of view. Unfortunately, I can't judge only that. And that's why often it happens that the audience are not really agreeing with the judges. And sometimes maybe it's unfair.
Yeah, it's true that judges are going to be a lot more stricter, for example, with timing, whereas the public just sees, wow, the people just put on a show. But you're like, well, if I value that in the dance, I have to put that forward. You know what I mean? So that's sometimes a lot of the times the public doesn't understand. Why did the judges judge that way? Sometimes there's a reason that's more tied to the greater scheme of things.
Like difficulty versus entertainment.
Yeah, difficulty versus entertainment could also be a factor. I get this question a lot, so I'm going to ask this one to you, Isabella. How do you deal with stress before a competition? Do you have any tactics, tips, or are you just generally not stressed?
Stress? I am very stressed. No stress. I don't think I'm stressed, but I'm nervous. I think it's different, no? So, stressed is when. Oh my God! Let me try to find the. You're not so nervous. I think you need to be nervous before entering the competition. If you're not nervous, I believe, if you're not nervous, you might as well quit. Or I don't know. It depends also which kind of competition we are talking about. I am nervous. I'm nervous when I go in social dance on the medium tempo. Because that, if I don't have that in me, that makes me nervous performing or competing in front of an audience, I think that then I lost my essence. I lost the reason why I'm doing that. Being nervous is having shaking a little bit, feeling tired, feeling you have to go to the loop all the time just before, but actually you don't need to, you know what I mean? We cut this one. And, but being stressed is like fear something, I feel. Like I'm stressed because I fear that I have to do these areas, that I have to dance, that it's going to be fast, that it's going to be difficult, that I'm not going to make it, that So I feel the stress is about all of these elements, which I don't feel normally, but nervous. I do feel nervous. But once I start dancing, then it's over. And that is why I love the adrenaline that the Strictly format gives, the spotlight.
Does anybody have any questions relating to what we've discussed so far? Yes.
Actually, like you're like talking about like judges and like audience. Like, do you think that like in the Lindy Hop scene, is it like far or is it like close to like be to take a role? Like can audience took a role on judging in Lindy Hop scene? Is it like far or like is it like I know like there are like lots of elements about like being on time or steps or like aerials and like technique, but like we know some of the like I don't know like hip hop scenes, like for example Summer Dance Forever, audience like is the judge. So is it can be like possible in Lindy Hop as well?
So can the audience participate in judging?
I mean, can, of course they can. I don't find it fair. But then we also depends which audience we have, where we are at. Like it really depends. But I feel that if it's a competition and people pays money maybe to go to that competition, to their clothes, practice many hours, they want to be judged from a professional, at least, to say the least. Because I think that when it comes, we already talked about before, that it becomes a little bit personal when there is no a clear guideline on how to judge. it can come like, I really like them, I really like what they do, I really like their style, I really like, and maybe you kind of forget about the other elements because there is not so much to follow through within the judgment. And I think that when it comes to the audience, a lot of time happens that they choose their favorite because they are their favorite, because they are the most popular, because they are funny, because they did a lot of funny areas, but then it becomes that a lot of other elements are not there. So I'm not sure. I don't think so far the stuff that happened, the few times that happened, hasn't been that fair, in my opinion.
I think those risks are really accurate. I think that there is a risk that whenever you have competitions like that, if somebody has a lot of friends in the audience, they might get more votes. But with that said, let's pretend like that wouldn't be an issue. I just think that it depends on what valuation you have of the, what's the meaning with, what's the point of the competition? Is the point of like making sure that people are judged by skill, difficulty, technique, etc., or is it about who made the most, who was the better spectacle, basically? And I think that there's values with both. So it's just like I see them as two very different competitions. When there is a judges for the final, or if there is audience for the final, for example. I think that both are very possible, and I mean they were very common. Both of them were very common for a while, where usually the light competitions, not necessarily by difficulty, but just light in terms of like attitude and how serious it was being taken and so on. A lot of people could go enter competitions and have a lot of fun, whether it was mix and match style competitions or strictly's or showcases, and then you would have audience judging it because it was more about just like, how was the show? How much did you enjoy this? So we asked the audience because they are the ones enjoying it or not, you know? So I think that that's an accurate moment to do it. Whereas if you actually want the dancers with all the core skills, etc., then maybe you need the judges.
Okay, I'm going to ask a last question. And I know that you both are organizing your own competition, your own event, called The Heat. And I wanted to know, there we go. So that's, yeah, we got another guest here. All the way from Sweden. So Pontus, I was saying that you're organizing the Heat together, right? And I wanted to know what are your biggest dreams or ambitions for this event, and has it stemmed from something that you would like to see more, and why?
Yes, I start a little bit and then Pontus can continue. Yes, the Heat is in Sweden. In May, from the 21st to the 24th of 2026. So the idea is it's going to be based on a lot of competitions, as well as a lot of social dancing, and as well as a battle of the band, which is going to be a real competition. I think that Pontus will talk about that a little bit more later. And yes, what we do is like we miss the time where different styles were brought together. It feels that nowadays, back in the days, I used to dance both Lindy and Balboa, kind of equally, because we were always together, and it kind of like, you start dancing and then you're just social dancing as much as. But now it feels, this is Balboa, for example, I took it, and now it feels like I never meet the Balboa teachers anymore. I never meet my friends that only or mostly do Balboa. And so on is with people who does rhythm and blues, or people who does college shag, or most of. But they do also Lindy Hop, because it's not that common that you do have workshop in different styles. So, and one of the things we are going to do is that we are going to have classes in different styles, and we are going to have different teachers who teaches different styles, so that we can bring a little bit more the community together. I remember even West Coast swing is very different, but still similar. And when we had crossover events with Lindy Hop and West Coast, it was fantastic. You get to know a lot of more, like much more people, and you get to share our knowledge with theirs. And I think it's like I miss those times, and we think that this is one of the reasons why we are going to do this festival. It's going to be bringing a lot of different styles together.
Could you talk about where it is?
No, next I said Sweden.
All right. So we're organizing this festival called The Heat in Sweden. If you fly to Gothenburg, it's very close to that airport. It's Borås, it's called the town. It's our hometown, and the hometown of actually quite many of the teachers of this of this camp. Both Daniel and Zacharias are from there originally as well. We grew up dancing in the same association as kids. Ricard lives in just a, he actually lives there right now as well. But he's from the just a town next to Borås as well. So that area is actually very well represented for being a very small town. Very well represented this weekend. It's a competition, workshop, and band competition event, like Isabella talked about. It has been very much a collection of the kind of things that we've seen over the years, where like, oh, it would be cool to do this, would be cool to do that, and then all of those ideas are basically felt like they were enough for an event all of a sudden, and so that's what we did. The Grand Band Slam, as it's called, is supposed to be. It's probably the most particular thing about the event, and where we have like maybe the most vision. What we would love for it to be in the future is a platform where like it will be an important competition enough for bands for there to be a lot of bands to enter. So what we're doing now for the first edition is that we will have 4 bands that compete against each other, not just a traditional one band versus one band, but just a round robin format. Everybody meets everybody, and then we have the playoffs and so on. And in a perfect, beautiful world where everybody thinks just as we do, maybe it would be 16 bands, you know, and it's like, it wouldn't really, it's like a Eurovision, but for like swing bands, you know, that would be awesome. But yeah, and then we have like, you know, some particular dance divisions that were like the scenario is like drawn from something that we've either missed because it used to be a thing. For example, some of our Lindy Hop competition formats is based on tempo rather than like only, well, we have the you know, like levels as well, but it was tempo. So we have one division for slow tempo, one division for medium, one division for fast. So you will only dance fast in the fast tempo division, etc. Yeah. Yeah.
We have different.
All right. So be there or be square.
And one last thing is that you now, the audience, is going to judge who's their favorite band, and there is going to be prize money for the winner in the end, and a safe spot for the next year, the HIT event. So, but you need to be there, otherwise we can't do it. Because you ask about the ambitions are high and big, but we'll see. For the first edition, you never know. But we need you all, yeah.
The Eurovision for the big bands, that's pretty funny.
That was a good one.
Okay, unfortunately we're gonna wrap it up here. If there's any people who have some urgent questions to ask Pontus and Isabella, don't hesitate to come up to them. They're very approachable, and ask them about their event and so on. But yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Alex.
That was
Thank
very
you, guys.
insightful. Thank you.